history books already said kind of thing. But what's the greatest misunderstanding between you and your relationship and about each other? What would you say would be this idea of catfight, this idea of which one of the many?
We've kept our marriage secret for over a decade now.
Canada, that trip to Canada. Mm-hmm. Was there?
I don't think either of us have anything to complain about in general. And I know that the projects, like the Mac project, was just an incredible thing, a fun thing where we were taking a risk. We did look a lot younger in that video.
We did.
You looked 12 in the first one.
That's how I try and look.
He was 12.
But, it's been fun to work together. And I actually kind of miss some of the people aren't around anymore. People come and go in this industry. It's nice when somebody sticks around and have some context of all the things that have worked and not worked. And the industry gets all crazy about some new thing. There's always this paradigm of the company that's successful is going to go away and stuff like that. It's nice to have people who've seen the waves and waves of that, and yet been willing when it counted to take the risk to bring in something new.
Has it been important? One last question, and then we'll go to the audience.
He didn't answer us because he just said this.
I have an answer.
He only talked about his secret gay marriage.
Yeah.
So.
I thought that was your answer.
No, that wasn't my answer. When Bill and I first met each other and worked together in the early days, generally we were both the youngest guys in the room, right? Individually or together. I'm about 6 months older than he is, but roughly the same age. And now, when we're working at our respective companies, I don't know about you, but I'm the oldest guy in the room most of the time. And that's why I love being here. And so
happy to oblige. Happy to oblige.
And I think of most things in life as either a Bob Dylan or a Beatles song. But there's that one line in that one Beatles song, you and I have memories longer than the road that stretches out ahead. And that's clearly true here.
Well, you know what? I think we should end it there. Let's just end it there.
I'm going to have a little tear right here.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you.
We're going to ask you questions.
Sit down.
Oh, standing O.
Thanks. Have we ever had a standing O here?
No.
I don't know.
The toilet.
No.
So some audience questions.
Questions. Can we have the lights?
Roger McNamee from Elevation Partners. Hey guys, that was incredible. Thank you very much. We've got a big election coming up next year. I'm curious if there are any issues that you see in Silicon Valley that we all ought to be focused on communicating effectively to the next potential president of the United States. That is any common ground that we share, because it's weird. You don't actually hear any issues that people are talking about right now. And I'm curious if you guys have any in mind.
Bill?
Well, certainly education is one that I'd put at the top of the list.
Are there technological solutions right now that they could do something about, or is that just sort of like...
No, technology is going to be helpful and more, but the way that teachers are measured and made excellent, the way that the high schools are designed, the expectations they have, it's not just a pure technology thing. It's more an institutional practice where the opportunity is. And there should be a lot of debate about the different ways of doing that.
Steve?
Boy, we've got some pretty big problems. And I think most of them are much bigger than anything Silicon Valley can contribute right now to solve. So hopefully some of those will get solved. I also think we underestimate how much all of our industry depends on stability. We've enjoyed a long period of stability, and we've been able to focus on technology and growing our businesses and stuff, and I think we take that for granted sometimes. One of the more interesting areas that we all suffer from, of course, is in the area of energy dependence. And there's a lot of work going on, I know, a lot of investing going on anyway. I don't know if the results are there, but a lot of investing going on in alternative energy, and maybe Silicon Valley can play a small role in some of that stuff,
Are you
too.
guys investing in that area? Personally, or
Some.
which might be a lot. And you?
Exactly. $1 billion here or there.
Steve,
Steve,
are you investing in that area?
No.
Or just a Prius?
Okay.
Or something like
Yeah,
that.
just appreciating it.
Over there?
Hi, Don Eklund, Sony Pictures. My question is really, at what point is there too much diversity? It was talked about a few times in the discussion, the fact that now microprocessors are very low cost, memory's low cost, software is ubiquitous. But my life has been made better by standards like coding standards, network standards, and it seems like we're reaching a point where diversity is starting to take hold to a point where we're not going to be able to have the kinds of convergence devices that I think everyone would really be able to appreciate. And I'm wondering, is this going to be like healthcare or mass transit, where you just can never put it back in the bottle again? And I'd like to get your perspective on that. If there's still an opportunity to have some grand convergence devices that can really simplify people's lives and enrich their lives.
Steve?
Well, I think Bill and I would agree that we can get it down to 2. No, I think it's hard to limit imagination and innovation. I think there's always going to be a bunch of new great things, and I think that's part of what we put up with to get the innovation. We put up with a little bit of aggravation to get the innovation.
And I think the marketplace is awfully good at allowing diversity when it should, and then getting rid of it when it shouldn't. I mean,
And then letting it come back sometimes.
yeah. Well, yeah.
Jed?
I mean, in terms of standards and things. The internet standards have been incredibly powerful. Video formats, things like this. And so I don't see things that are going to really hold back a convergence device. Sure, there's a lot of wireless approaches, but that's pretty healthy right now. They each have various merits. A few of them will end up overlapping the other ones and kill the other ones out. But I think the industry's done very well at latching on to standards for the things that there were no longer any innovation in, and then focusing on the places where it wasn't clear which approach was best.
Jesse?
Hi, I'm Jesse Kornbluth, headbutler.com. Because you're not the youngest guys in the room anymore, it's perhaps appropriate to ask you a question about legacy, each of you. Bill, even your harshest critic would have to admit that your philanthropy work is planet-shaking, incredible, and could be, if you make it, a second act so amazing that it would dwarf what you've actually done at Microsoft. If you had to choose a legacy, what would it be? And Steve, do you look at Bill and you think, gee, that guy is so lucky. He had a company so rich with talent that he didn't have to personally, come in every day and save it. And, I wish I had the opportunity.
Okay, he's not going to answer that one.
Bill?
Well, the most important work I got a chance to be involved in, no matter what I do, is the personal computer. That's what I grew up, my teens, my 20s, my 30s. I even knew not to get married until later because I was so obsessed with it. That's my life's work. And it's lucky for me that some of the skills and resources, but I'd put skills first, that I was able to develop through those experiences can be applied to the benefit of the people who haven't had technology, including medicine, working for them. So it's an incredible blessing to have two things like that. But the thing that if you look inside my brain, it's filled with software and, the magic of software and a belief in software. And, that's not going to change.
Okay.
So your question was about whether I wish I didn't have to go into Apple every day?
No, if you envy Bill a bit, this second act that he has.
Oh, no, I think it's I think the
I don't want
world's
to do anything else. But
I think the world's a better place because Bill realized that his goal isn't to be the richest guy in the cemetery. Right? That's a good thing. And so he's doing a lot of good with the money that he made. I'm sure Bill was like me in this way. I mean, I grew up fairly middle class, lower middle class, and I never really cared much about money. And Apple was so successful early on in life that I was very lucky that I didn't have to care about money then. And so I've been able to focus on work and then later on my family. And I sort of look at us as two of the luckiest guys on the planet because we found what we loved to do and we were at the right place at the right time. And we've gotten to go to work every day with super bright people for 30 years and do what we love doing. And so it's hard to be happier than that. Your family and that. What more can you ask for? And so I don't think about legacy much. I just think about being able to get up every day and go in and hang around these great people and hopefully create something that other people will love as much as we do. And if we can do that, that's great.
I think the middle. Yeah.
Thanks, Stephen, Bill. Rob Kelly. I'm here with my business partner. We've got a 100-person internet media business. I'm wondering what would be the single most valuable piece of advice you'd give us to even attempt to create some of the value that you guys have done in both your very impressive companies.
I think actually, maybe in both cases, correct me if I'm wrong, the excitement wasn't really seeing the economic value. Even when we wrote down at Microsoft in 1975, a computer on every desk and in every home, we didn't realize, and we'll have to be a big company. Every time I thought, oh God, can we double in size? Geez, can you manage that many people? Will that feel fun still? And so every doubling was like, okay, this is the last one. And so the economic thing wasn't at the forefront. The idea of being at the forefront and seeing new things and things we wanted to do and being able to bring in different people who are fun to work with, eventually with a pretty broad set of skills, and figuring out how to get those people, those broad skills, to work well together has been one of the greatest challenges. I've made more of my mistakes in that area maybe than anywhere, but eventually getting some of those teams to work very well together. So it's, I think it's a lot about the people and the passion, and it's amazing that the business worked out the way that it did.
Yeah. People say you have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing, and it's totally true. And the reason is because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up. It's really hard. And you have to do it over a sustained period of time. So if you don't love it, if you're not having fun doing it, and you don't really love it, you're going to give up. And that's what happens to most people, actually. If you really look at the ones that ended up being successful, unquote, in the eyes of society and the ones that didn't, oftentimes it's the ones that are successful loved what they did so they could persevere when it got really tough. And the ones that didn't love it quit because they're sane. Right? Who would want to put up with this stuff if you don't love it? So it's a lot of hard work, and it's a lot of worrying constantly. And if you don't love it, you're going to fail. So you got to love it. You got to have passion. And I think that's the high order bit. The second thing is you've got to be a really good talent scout. Because no matter how smart you are, you need a team of great people. And you've got to figure out how to size people up fairly quickly, make decisions without knowing people too well, and hire them and see how you do and refine your intuition and be able to help build an organization that can eventually just build itself. Because you need great people around you.
Thank you.
Liz Beyer, question, I guess it's historical curiosity. You approach the same opportunity so very differently. What did you learn about running your own business that you wished you had thought of sooner or thought of first by watching the other guy?
Well, I'd give a lot to have Steve's taste. He has natural, not a joke at all. I think in terms of intuitive taste, both for people and products. We sat in Mac product reviews where there were questions about software choices, how things would be done, that I viewed as an engineering question, and that's just how my mind works. And I'd see Steve make the decision based on a sense of people and product that it's even hard for me to explain. The way he does things, it's just different. And I think it's magical. And in that case, wow.
Because Woz and I started the company based on doing the whole banana, we weren't so good at partnering with people. And, actually, the funny thing is, Microsoft's one of the few companies we were able to partner with that actually worked for both companies. And we weren't so good at that, as where Bill and Microsoft were really good at it, because they didn't make the whole thing in the early days. And they learned how to partner with people really well. And I think if Apple could have had a little more of that in its DNA, it would have served it extremely well. And I don't think Apple learned that until, a few decades later.
Last question. Is there?
This over here.
I'm sorry, over here.
Yeah, hi, Charlie Brenner from Fidelity Investments. In our financial services industry, we are focusing very strongly on aging and retiring baby boomers, a huge demographic.
We're not that old.
Oh, no, I wasn't. The question is different from what it sounds like it's going to be. But most of the innovation that we see coming from computer and internet companies is kind of youth-oriented. And I'm just wondering if there are activities going on in your companies acknowledging what's going to be happening generationally.
Not true. I'll give you one example. So we started building in video cameras into almost all our computers a few years ago. And the response by people of all ages, but in particular seniors, has been off the charts. Because they're buying these things now, and they're buying them for their grandkids, their sons and daughters with their grandkids, so they can stay in touch with their grandkids, and they're video conferencing more than younger people are. And it's incredible what this has done. So that's just one simple example, but there's like dozens of them that have clicked with seniors that are living independently that want to stay in touch with extended families and do other things like that.
Yeah, I think that it's a very good point when you look at the size of the market. And that's partly why it's great that there are all these companies out there who can see, okay, what would you do for seniors? I think natural user interface is particularly applicable here because the keyboard, we're sort of warped in that we grew up using the keyboard, and so it's extremely natural to us. But things like, and that's partly why when we showed the Surface computer, I showed it privately to a bunch of CEOs a couple weeks ago. I was kind of stunned by how blown away they were. But their ease of navigation is just not the same. And when they saw that, the idea that they could organize their photo album, it meant more to them than it did to me.
I'll give you another example. We've got a little shy of 200 retail stores now. And one of the things the stores are doing is personal training now. It's called one-to-one. And we are up to now a run rate of 1 million personal training sessions. They last an hour per year. 1 million per year.
You only started a little while ago, right?
Yeah. We started about a year ago. And we're up to 1 million training sessions a year run rate now. And a lot of those folks, some of them anyway, many of them are seniors. And they're coming in and they're spending an hour learning how to use Office, and they're spending an hour learning how to video conference. And they can basically come in as much as they want, and they can schedule these things throughout a year, and they pay $99, I think, a year for it. And it's been great.
Last question.
Now the last question over there.
We all share a common science fiction experience of the metaverse or the Matrix, where we all could communicate without being in the same place. And by the way, thank you both for providing us the best platform so far to go to chat rooms or to all go to a MySpace. It's a far cry from these things that we see on Star Trek or the holodeck. What kinds of things can you imagine that are partway there that could be much better than the 3-window iChat that we might see in the next 5 or 10 years?
Well, I don't think Steve's going to announce his transporter.
I want Star Trek. Just give me Star Trek.
No, I think short of the transporter, most things you see in science fiction are, in the next decade, the kinds of things you'll see. The virtual presence, the virtual world that both represents what's going on in the real world and represents whatever people are interested in. This movement in space as a way of interacting with the machine. I think the deep investments that have been made at the research level will pay off with these things in the next 10 years.
Steve?
I don't know. And that's what makes it exciting to go into work every day. Because there's, as we talked about earlier, this is an extraordinarily exciting time in the industry. And lots of new stuff happening. So, I can't even begin to think of what it's going to be like 10 years from now.
Great.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much.
Great.
Thank you so much. It's great.